A couple days ago, I broke my sobriety and relapsed from weed and nicotine. And now, a couple days later, I'm going back into sobriety. And in this video, I'm going to explain what happened whenever I smoked weed and vaped nicotine and how I felt, why I am deciding to go back to sobriety overall, and what weed really and nicotine are not doing for me, and what they are doing to me that's really propelling me to stay in sobriety. So, for weeks and weeks, maybe a month, it's been about 2 or 3 months that I've been sober, but the last month or so, I started to feel these really intense withdrawals, like really big cravings and just obsessing over doing weed again. And I have weed paired with nicotine inside my mind, psychologically, pretty sure. It's something that I do with the other one to enhance the other one. And I don't really need one with the other. I learned that yesterday. I've known that for a while, but I've paired them together. So that's why another reason why I started nicotine, even though my cravings for weed were much stronger than for nicotine for some reason. And it's weird because, nicotine always seems like the more addictive one. It definitely is the one harder to quit at first. It's got the stronger withdrawals at first. But for some reason, for me, weed, it's there's psychological reasons why I am so attached to weed, I think. But months ago, I quit, and then the last month, I was getting these intense withdrawals, and it was not so much anxiety, but more depression, irritability, just feeling empty and like everything was bland all of a sudden. I was not motivated to do anything, but I was doing everything. I was feeling burnt out, probably because I was doing so much. But the brain chemistry inside my brain, the chemistry inside my brain was not feeling motivated. It was not there. I felt very burnt out, and I was really craving a escape of some kind. Even though I had multiple types of escapes, which I think are healthier, like writing, the story, the comic book story, the superhero saga that I'm writing for Z-Man the Vegan, the background lore and all that, and then writing songs, and that's much healthier. But for some reason, everything just started to get bland, and and this happens every single time I quit. And I looked it up online, and it's called pause. It's some type of post withdrawal symptoms or something, where the withdrawal symptoms come back from smoking weed like a couple months from quitting, and sometimes they're really strong and really intense. And for me, I didn't really have problems sleeping, which is good. A lot of people say they have problems sleeping. I had more problems just wanting to be awake. Well, I mean, I wouldn't oversleep either. I would wake up, I would get stuff done, but I just like how I felt about life. Like I was just depressed, and there was no spark to anything. I mean, there was some spark. Like I still had some moments, and like as I focused on things and got lost in projects, or if I spent time with my son, I would still feel that. And it was still amazing, but it's like as soon as that's over and I'm just back to sitting alone with myself at the end of the night or in the beginning of the day, whenever I could be working on something, or whenever I know in my heart that I want to be doing something, I just start to get all shriveled up and hollowed out and demotivated and uninspired. And so my mind started thinking of all the times I would smoke weed, and I would be able to be inspired easily, or so I thought. I'd be able to be motivated to work on these things easily, or so I thought. And part of that's true, but it's also true that whenever I wasn't smoking weed, and whenever I didn't feel this type of depression and uninspiredness, I got so much more done. So, a couple days ago, I went and I bought all this stuff. I bought some stuff from the gas station I work at, and it's kind of funny because I walk up and I bought like 2 velo pouch things and 2 packs of views and then a view starter kit, and I'm buying all the nicotine. I just walk up and I'm like, I'm breaking my nicotine sobriety, and it made my coworkers laugh. It was kind of, I guess, a humorous situation for them, and for me it was kind of funny because I'm buying all this nicotine, and I'm pretty sure they knew me as the guy who did not use nicotine or anything. But anyway, I bought a bunch of nicotine, and then I went to the dispensary just down the road and I bought an eighth of the best sativa that they have with the highest THC. It was like $40 or something. And then I went home, and actually right underneath there, because my dad was cutting the grass whenever I came home, and he was on the other side of the house, so it was the best place to sit, so I wasn't in his way. And it was the coolest place to sit since it was so hot. It was underneath the deck. And I smoked some weed, and then I started listening to music. First, I listened to Something in the Way by Nirvana, because I just have this memory whenever I was a kid of listening to Something in the Way, and then one of the first times I smoked a full cigarette and like got a nicotine high, and I felt like I was on a roller coaster, and it was just going with the music. It was something intense about that ride, and I wanted that again, but I didn't have headphones like I did back whenever I was a kid this time, and also I was sick, so I wasn't really able to enjoy it as much. I'm still sick, but not as bad as the other day. But anyway, I was able to feel the high and know what it would be like, even if I wasn't sick. I mean, the only thing that being sick added was sore throat and like just stuffiness, body aches, fatigueness. Anyway, so I'm sitting there smoking, and first I listened to Nirvana, and then I start wanting to listen to my songs, because this happens a lot whenever I get stoned. I want to listen to my songs, and I get more interested in my own songs for some reason. And then I started thinking, wow, these are actually way better than I thought. I don't suck as bad as I thought I did. So, and as I listen to my songs, it's like my plan for the day was to go and play video games and just relax and just escape. But as I'm getting high and listening to my songs, it makes me realize what I actually want to do with my life. It makes me like I got this sense of dread, this sense of I can't just go spend my time on something that's not meaningful to me, on something that if I died at the end of today, would I actually be proud of what I did? But I wasn't even like thinking in terms of that inspirational quote, stuff like that. I was literally trying to just smoke and escape and do what I said I was gonna do. But as I was doing it, I felt empty inside. It was like, this is completely unfulfilling. This is not. It was boring. I mean, listening to the music was captivating me for a while. My music, but it was just unfulfilling. So I was like, oh, I need to go write a song. I need to go do something now. And I've heard a lot of people say whenever they get high, they think of all these ideas, but they don't do them. And I would always do them. I would always write down, like, if I felt like I needed to write a song, then I would write the song, because I didn't want to become a stoner who just did nothing. But so yesterday I did write a song, and it didn't turn out too well. I listened to it like an hour after I wrote it, and it was just me mumbling into a phone, which I knew it was that, but I thought I would be able to understand more of it. And I thought it was so cool whenever I first wrote it. But I'm getting high, and I'm getting this desire to work on my music and to do something with my life. And I'm realizing that the more I get high, the more I stay slumped down. Even though this is sativa, the strongest sativa I asked for, the more I stay slumped down in this position of sitting and just listening in this loop of music. And sure, sometimes I break out of that loop and I'm just barely going against the tide of the high and working on something. But then it pulls me right back in, where I just want to get high again and just sit and not really work on stuff. And then I start working on stuff just to justify me sitting there for hours. And I start not putting as much time towards working on the things. And the time that I do put towards it, I'm like, I'm high and like groggy and just like barely pushing along, rather than I remembered yesterday too the contrast of what it felt like. Like, I mean, I've been sober for 3 months and I've been so like smooth and getting all this done. The contrast of being high and like forgetful and slow and not as focused, to working on music and videos with such clarity and smoothness and preciseness and like boom, bada, bang. And so immediately I was realizing that I just didn't want to be high anymore. I don't want to be high in my life anymore, because it's not serving me at all. But that was just the beginning of my realization, because, you know, I set my goals for the day to play video games and get high and watch YouTube or whatever. I wanted to escape. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to get away from that empty feeling, which it did kind of work. It, for whatever reason, it kind of reset the depression and the empty feeling inside of me. But then another empty feeling came up, but it was like it ignited my inspiration. I don't know if it was the weed that did it specifically, or the realization that the weed isn't going to do it for me, so I could finally let go of any expectations or fear of missing out. But I know that I felt reset yesterday, and as if I didn't have that same like deep, empty, bland feeling. And whenever I was high, I started to feel more inspired for my music, and like, oh, what new songs am I working on? Because I have like hundreds and hundreds of audio recordings on my phone that I scroll through sometimes, and sometimes I'll add to them every now and then, more often on other times. It's been less often as I went more and more sober that last month, because like I was saying, I was uninspired and just feeling like not motivated. Like all the projects I was doing a lot of projects, but all the projects I was working on, I was like, it felt more mandatory. Like, oh, I have to get this done just to stay up with the work. But then as soon as I got high, I got excited to look through all these projects. These guineas are ruining the video. It's like as soon as they see me, they start just freaking out and making noises. Okay. As soon as I got high, I started to get excited for my music again. And For some reason that happens. I'm not sure why. And I don't need to be high to get excited for my music. I'll explain that a little bit later. But basically, I went in, I played video games. I got bored of those too. It just wasn't doing it for me. It just felt so empty and unfulfilling, and like I'm not getting what I want to get done with life, and I just wasted this time doing this thing that didn't even make me feel as good as it used to make me feel. Like it's not even as exciting as it used to be. And so then I went back outside to smoke one last time on the first day that I relapsed, and I'm scrolling through these audio recordings of my phone, and I'm finding a whole bunch of audio recordings of songs that I haven't finished yet. Some of them are completely finished songs that I spat out or did in like one performance and just put it into my phone in the audio recording, but I never went back to. Or some of them are like a remix. I named it remix because it's a song that I already uploaded, but it's like it's a different version, because I'll sometimes have like multiple different versions until I decide on this version. And so I'm scrolling through and just listening and jamming out and enjoying the music, and it's making me think how, you know, whenever I'm high, I like music so much. And it also reminded me of like whenever I first started writing songs at a very young age, like 13, 12, 13. I was on this deck with a nylon string guitar and a tiny pen, like an actual pen, a metal pen that I took the cap off, flipped it upside down, and made it into a homemade one-hitter, basically. And I was smoking weed and writing songs. And so at an early age, I had a relationship with the high and with music. And I think that's why there's a attachment there, and why I have this excitement there, because it brings me back to those days whenever I first started smoking and first started playing music and exploring the sounds of the guitar and writing my own songs through creativity, just all alone and in my own world up there. I remember it was a good time. It was like I was going into a whole new world on that deck, and I would pair it with weed because weed seemed to just take me away that way. And so I'm sitting there thinking, as I'm scrolling through all these audio recordings, like, yeah, weed is going to help me rekindle the chemistry with my music again and have more passion for it. And I have this thought almost every single time I start smoking again, and then I get really high like this. But then as I'm scrolling, I'm realizing all these new songs that I'm listening to, and they're really good songs. And I thought for a second, oh, I must have been high whenever I like wrote these songs. But then I look at the date and I'm like, I wrote all these songs whenever I was sober. I wrote all these songs like a month or two after quitting, whenever I quit 3 months ago. And then it also made me realize that and remember that whenever I get high, just like whenever I tried to write that one song, whenever I was under there and I was like, oh, I need to go write a song. And then I went and wrote a song and it sounded like mumbling. Whenever I get high, it's like I don't have the same energy I do whenever I'm sober. So I can't work as long, as hard, as consistently, as precisely. And so I'm not going to get as much done. And so if I want to create music that's impactful and as powerful, then being sober is the way to go. And I can be inspired and be sober just like I was. All those songs I was scrolling through, I was inspired enough to write all those songs, and there's a lot of songs on there. And so that's not the end either. So then I make sure I stop smoking at a certain time before bed, because I don't want it to affect my sleep as much. And so I stop, and then I put it all up into a closet away, out of sight. And then very, very groggily, or I'm very drowsy, and it's very hard for me to stay up. And I'm sitting there just trying to stay up for the certain amount of time to let the high go out of my system before I go to bed. And I do that, and then I wake up in the morning and I feel like crap. I mean, I'm sick, so of course it's gonna make me feel sicker. But it just made me realize that I don't like I also remembered how the nicotine made me feel in the morning and after hitting it, and the weed and all of it. It brings down my energy, it brings down my health, my body, my focus, and I'm definitely going, like, I've been sleeping easily for about 7.5 hours a night sober whenever I'm not sick. And if I start smoking, then that'll probably go up to 8 or 9 hours a night. So that's a lot. That's a whole day I'm missing out on within 30 days, pretty much. Or almost 2 days I'm missing out on in 1 month. And so I woke up the next morning and I'm taking a shower, and during that shower I realized I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And it was actually a really liberating and freeing realization and feeling and discernment, and trying to think of the word, choice to make. I decided that I was going to quit weed and nicotine yesterday, and whenever I got home from work I was going to throw it away. And so I was already deciding not to do it in the morning at all. I mean, it was easier to do since I was sick. I didn't feel that bad. And for some reason, the nicotine withdrawals just weren't hitting yet. Even though I was hitting my vape not all day, but for like 4 hours the previous day. And in the morning yesterday, I just didn't really have any cravings or withdrawals to hit it until later at night. But I was planning on not hitting my vape or smoking weed in the morning, and that's what I did anyway. And then I went to work, and as I was at work, I was starting to get that fear of missing out, even though I just experienced what it was like being high and hitting my nicotine vape, and they both just, the feelings they gave me just weren't strong enough, or it just wasn't worth it. Like, with the nicotine vape, it just, whenever I hit it under there for the first time you hit it is going to be the strongest time, and then it's not going to have that same strong nicotine high unless you go another month or so without hitting it. And it was so underwhelming. It just wasn't as strong or euphoric as I was hoping it would be. And on top of that, it was pulling me down. Every single hit, I felt it. It was like, same thing with the weed. It didn't feel like it lifted me up. It made me high. It felt like it was making me low, like it was pulling me down. literally. I could feel it. And it just made me want to sit there, but like physically it made my body want to sit there, but my spirit wants to actually get up and do something with this life still. So I was quite repelled by it, and that's why whenever I woke up in the morning and then I felt the nastiness in my body, like the nicotine and weed hangover or whatever, I was all of a sudden even further determined to just not do them. It seems so unlogical and like it's not doing anything for me. I'm just gonna spend a lot of money and build up these habits that I'll become a slave to. I won't even be having as much fun as I was hoping I'd be having. But as I was at work, I was daydreaming and having a fear of missing out and thinking, okay, what if I just did it every other day? What if I do it once a week? I mean, I wasn't thinking about the nicotine though, because for some reason that's easier for me to quit, like logically think about quitting. Now I was thinking more about the weed, because the nicotine, it was so obvious whenever I hit it, it made me feel, and it might be because I'm sick, but it made me feel so much more worse than it made me feel better. And then it made me want to hit it again. Like, it was still addictive. I still had that pull to hit it again, but it's like each time it was just like like it just made me feel worse and worse. But the weed, I at least had that moment where I was inspired to do music, and I felt like relaxed. Like I had that reset from feeling tense all the time and irritable and depressed and just like I can't enjoy anything, to actually being able to, even if it wasn't fully, enjoy and be inspired by my music and actually have a couple small moments of just being relaxed. But as I went on through the day, I went back and forth, because I also realized I've had those moments of being relaxed, and I'm actually able to be more relaxed off of weed. And weed, it makes me sleep not as well, so that's gonna make me not as relaxed throughout the day. It's gonna give me not as much energy, and it's doing the opposite of what I'm hoping it'll do. And that inspiration that I think I only get for my music from weed, I can get it sober. I can create it. I know I can. I've done it. And so I went home last night and I smoked one baddie of weed. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. One baddie, and then I'll play video games. Probably the last time. Because I hadn't made a video yet, and also I wasn't fully determined in what I was going to do yet. Now, I was sure that I wasn't going to start the nicotine. I started having more cravings toward the end of the night, and as I pulled out the weed from the bag where I kept my e-cig too, I had a small thought of, oh, just hit the e-cig tonight. Tonight can be your last night for the e-cig. But then immediately after that, I'm like, no, if I hit it tonight, then it'll be harder to hit it tomorrow night, then harder to not hit it the next night. And then it'll just get harder and harder, and it's not worth it. And so I decided to not hit the nicotine yesterday at all. But I had one small baddie of weed, and I was playing video games. And again, it was underwhelming. Like, the video games were just not fulfilling or anything. It was boring. And then I started getting anxiety and realizing, and looking back, I remember now the first night I relapsed, I had anxiety too. So weed was creating anxiety for me. Whenever I'm thinking that it's supposed to be solving anxiety, and that's something that has happened, but I've never really wanted to face and bring up to the surface because weed was my way to escape, and it seemed to do other things for me and have these reset buttons that pushed me away from irritability and stress, but at the same time it's creating this anxiety within me. And I also smoked it like 2.5 hours before bedtime rather than 3. I was trying to do 3 because it's best to do it 3 hours before bedtime so it doesn't affect your sleep. And now it's obviously affected. I can feel it. It's affected my state of mind, my focus, and my sleep a bit. And so waking up today, I mean, I already knew yesterday, even while smoking this one baddie and then experiencing the dullness and the underwhelmingness of it, how, I don't want this in my life. It's not doing anything for me. This is reaffirmed that it's not going to do anything for me, that I can enjoy everything just as much. I can get so much more done without spending money on this stuff and without not ruining my sleep completely, but making my sleep not as good, and a whole bunch of other things not as good. My breathing, my singing, my energy levels, my focus, even my mood. Because once I start getting into smoking, then I need weed to stabilize my mood. I need weed to feel okay. And those pause might come back. Like the later withdrawals might come back 3 months into me quitting again. But now I have more of a reference of what happens if I start smoking again. It doesn't actually help anything. It's not gonna be something that I can go back into and do day in, day out like I was daydreaming about. It's not actually a long-term solution. I mean, smoking once just to relieve those withdrawals might be a small band-aid like solution. But if I can make it through those withdrawals, because those will go away, I just have to remind myself that those will go away. Those are not forever. Even though they're a couple months after I quit, and I was expecting all the withdrawals to be gone after the first month, pause will probably come back, but they will go away. And then I will be happier, more fulfilled, have more energy, more calm, be more motivated, more focused, a whole bunch of things. And so I decided to go back to sobriety. And this morning, whenever I woke up, I threw away all the nicotine and the eighth of weed and the pipes that I bought. I didn't throw those away. I actually gave those to someone. But which, I'm kind of conflicted a little bit with, because I did think about throwing them away, because I don't really just want to give them to someone else and enable their habit. But they're already doing what they're doing, and they're a different person doing it for different reasons. But still, I gave it away to someone, and then I threw away all the nicotine stuff. And here I am, now, sober once again. On the journey of being sober. We're starting over. It's day one. But whenever I upload this, it's actually a couple days into it. This is Monday, and I'm recording this on Thursday. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. For the animals! Woo!